So Sally makes an excellent point about the animal feed. We are a nonprofit organization, 501c3. You can make a donation to us to help us do this work. And one of the things that we're going to be doing, starting almost immediately, is creating a second strategy to focus on animal feed. I'm not going to go into the details because we're live streaming and I know who's watching. Not all friendly faces out there. So I'm not going to describe our detailed strategy, which I'm very excited about, but we are in fact looking for some significant donations to do this second tier tipping point, which will be a tipping point for the majority of GMOs, and that's what's fed to animals. Thank you, Sally. Okay, next question. Yes. And they do use the chymosin, which is the genetically engineered enzyme in Europe. They use a lot of genetically engineered enzymes in a lot of things. In our shopping guide, by the way, we don't focus on the GMO enzymes. We're doing it systematically in ways that people can digest, good term. And but I didn't realize that people were reacting. This is the first I've heard of that. So, Sally, I want to ask if we can collaborate to start gathering the evidence of case studies. This is one thing that the Institute for Responsible Technology does. We're a small institute. We're the only organization in the world that I know of that's actually gathering evidence of case studies of people that have reactions to GMO food and feed. Great, great, excellent. Okay, yes. I will tell you. Right. So there are 9 genetically modified food crops: soy, corn, cotton, which is used in cottonseed oil, canola oil, sugar beets, which are only used for sugar, alfalfa, which is used as hay for animals, papaya, but only the papaya that's grown in Hawaii or China, plus zucchini and yellow crookneck squash, or yellow squash. Yes. So the beets that you buy as table beets are not genetically engineered. There may be cross-pollination at the seed level between the sugar beets and table beets and Swiss chard, and the canola can cross with brassicas, which is also cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and broccoli. So there's always the possibility of tiny levels of contamination, but the sugar is what is polluted by the GMO. And one thing that's interesting about GMOs is the more you process it, the lower the risk. You don't eliminate the risk, but you reduce the risk. So we talked about genes transferring to your gut bacteria. There are no GM genes in the sugar or in high fructose corn syrup. So you won't get the genes transferring to your gut bacteria. There's no more Bt toxin, so you're not going to get something to poke holes in your stomach. But remember that the process of genetic engineering causes massive collateral damage in the DNA, and the DNA might produce some fat-soluble toxin that ends up in the oil, or some endocrine disruptor that ends up in the high fructose corn syrup. And so it's not free of risk if it has no DNA or protein. It's still higher risk than natural foods, but it's a lower risk than, say, corn on the cob sold at Walmart that's Monsanto's Roundup Ready BT version. So it's more dangerous if it's genetically engineered than, say, a corn oil where there's no for the GM side. There may be other aspects of high fructose corn syrup that make that particularly dangerous, but in terms of the GM risk, the GM is riskier the more raw it is. Sugar is GM because the majority of sugar in the US is from sugar beets. So if you buy sugar, and it doesn't say cane sugar, it's between 50 and 60%, I'm told, sugar beets, derived sugar. Less danger, yes, but you see, the thing is, there's no evidence that tells us how dangerous or how less. Like, for example, there was a food supplement in the 1980s called L-tryptophan, created from genetically modified bacteria, and the process almost certainly created these contaminants which were deadly. They killed about 100 Americans, caused 5,000 to 10,000 to fall sick, and yet the tryptophan passed the US pharmaceutical standard for safety and purity because it was 98.5% pure. So in the 1.5% were these contaminants that were 0.1% and 0.01% of the total weight, and they were deadly. So we can't let it off the hook simply because it's processed, but in general, it's safer the more processed it is, which is odd. Now, I've been taking too long to answer these questions, and I want to get to more questions, so I want to take a shorter time. Go ahead. It is unlikely, I am told by biologists, for the cellulose in cotton to produce Bt on its own. There are thousands of farm workers in India who are getting allergic reactions from touching the cotton that hasn't been cleaned. There are people in a ginning factory that need to take antihistamines every day just to go to work. There are people who lean against the cotton bales, and get itching all over their bodies. There's hospital records, pharmacy records, and doctors' reports that talk about this itching. There's also animals dying that eat the cotton plants, which is a different story. So, but we have not heard of anyone reacting to the cleaned cotton after the Bt producing portions are removed. I haven't seen data. We just haven't heard yet. Yes, yes. In the back? Question? Yes. All right, just a minute. Oh, basically, all of these companies in Europe, the same companies that sell anything in Europe, Hershey's Kisses, how come we can't get the kisses that the French enjoy? Because Hershey's Kisses in France have no genetically engineered soy lecithin or genetically engineered sugar. Same in Brazil, but here they do. So basically everything. Those were just examples. Yes. Yes. Yes, in the film, you will watch Michael Fox, who's a veterinarian. He writes a syndicated column called Animal Doctor with 25 to 30 million viewers or readers. And he said when GMOs were introduced, gastrointestinal problems and immune system problems, itching and diarrhea, inflammatory bowel. And he said, get rid of the GMOs, and he has a file drawer full of his readers that say it worked. I talked to another veterinarian recently. She was like born again GMO. She realized that GMOs were the problem, and now she's doing interventions, and the pets are getting better. So that's another outreach area, is pet owners, that we are looking for funding to initiate. Hold on, let me get someone else a chance, okay? Go ahead. Yes, so if someone could bring me the Genetic Roulette book, I'll show you how we've put it together so that you can talk to the academics or the politicians or the doctors. So this was a 2007 book, so there's 6 years missing of data, but the left side has the summary for the attention deficit politician, and the right side are the details with the citations. And so every page of the first 65 risks are like that. And there's 1,153 endnotes, and that's the first part. The second part shows how current safety assessments around the world are completely incompetent to identify the risks in the first part. The third part shows meticulously how the industry has rigged their research using tobacco science to avoid finding problems, how we catch them red-handed, lying and playing, non-scientific stuff and calling it science. And then the fourth part shows why GMOs are not actually the answer to world hunger. They actually work against it. And this is all done in a way that you can scan it or have a casual read or a deep study, and that's described at the very beginning. So for example, at the last portions, all you have to do is read the crossheads for a scan. And then there's 2 other levels that you can read depending on how deep you want to go. So this is a handy book, and if you ever put it in your lending library, then you open it up and show people. Otherwise, if you hand it to one, it looks too much like a textbook, and they'll never open it unless they realize they can scan it in a couple of hours or less. I have only one edition, the 2007 edition. There's a new, less detailed book about health online. It's called GMO Myths and Truths. It has information, though, on the environmental and economic risks that this one doesn't have. So that's about 120 pages. It goes into health and environment and economics, and it's more up to date. Yeah. So the GM salmon is in the approval stages by the FDA. The comment period ends this month. The FDA has never done anything that aggravated Monsanto. Actually, one thing. They basically they march lockstep with them. Now, Monsanto's not the fish, although the former CEO, Robert Shapiro of Monsanto, is part of the consortium that owns Aqua Bounty, which is introducing the fish. I think it's extremely dangerous for health and the environment. It could theoretically wipe out natural salmon forever, make them extinct if it gets released into the ocean accidentally. And it may be an allergen, it may be a toxin, it may have hormones in there that can promote cell growth and promote cancer, just like the bovine growth hormone, the IGF-1. The studies that were used to submit to the FDA were so bad that even the FDA initially rejected it, and when they were handed back, it didn't pass muster with almost any scientist that looked at it from an independent standpoint. We have the petitions going around, but we're also asking the retailers to say out loud that they're not going to allow GM salmon to be sold in their stores. And Aldi and Trader Joe's and Whole Foods have come forth publicly saying they won't sell GM salmon. We know of other chains that won't sell it, but have been keeping low profile. Friends of the Earth and our Institute for Responsible Technology are both focusing on this more market-driven means. I don't know if it'll work, but it's very serious because this is the first GM animal for consumption. It could open the door for all livestock to be genetically engineered. No, it is a disaster. They don't plan to put it in outdoors. They plan to grow the eggs in Canada and put it in tanks in Panama and then ship us the fish to eat. But one salmon released accidentally could end the life of the salmon population. Yeah, in the back. Right, thank you. But now I want to ask before we go, we're going to stop in just a moment, if there are any non-GMO or anti-GMO groups here that have meetings or lists and they want to meet with people who are interested in getting involved. So is there anyone here that wants to announce either a meeting or an opportunity to sign up for a local group? So Bodhi, why don't you start? And do you want to meet anyone who wants to work with you at the end of the night? So why don't you be in the back just over there so you're not crowding the table with an extra group that'll be blocking it. So meet over there with Bodhi.
I have some people who have mentioned to me that, hey, life is short and why worry about GMOs? So I feel trapped in that sense. I don't know how I should be able to convince them otherwise.
My suggestion is to show them the film Genetic Roulette. If they're hearing impaired, we have English subtitles, and nearly everyone becomes convinced. So you don't have to learn all of the talking points. But if you want to, then go to responsibletechnology.org. It's on our materials. And begin to read so that you can be equipped with the tools to convince people. Everyone is under a barrage of so many things that are bad. But the truth about GMOs is that it may be one of the worst health and environmental catastrophes ever introduced. And people are getting better and feeling better on non-GMO diets. And so even if they're going to die anyway, their quality of life may be dramatically improved. Okay, we're going to take just 2 more questions because we have to go. Yes? It was coverage. There were a couple of major papers in England that had taken on the task of stopping GMOs, and there were a couple of ones that were trying to promote GMOs. So there were wars. And within the first week, one of the editors of an article said it divided society into 2 warring blocks. So it was huge in the news. We've never had anything like that on GMOs here. Well, the thing is, Project Censored, a media watchdog group, described this event that happened in Europe that caused all that media as one of the 10 most underreported events of the year in the United States. We have, in the book Seeds of Deception, a chapter called Muscling the Media, which describes some of the tactics they use to silence mainstream media. So because we only need 5%, we can do it through the demographic media to these targeted demographic groups. But we also get mainstream media. I was on Dr. Oz twice. I've been on a lot of mainstream stuff. In the very back, thank you. I remember that. It was disgusting to watch a news anchor eat a genetically modified salmon in Panama and say, oh, it tastes like salmon, should be good. Hey, it tastes good for me, I think it's healthy. Well, that makes sense. All right, I'll tell you what, the reason we want to break now is we want to make sure people have a chance to purchase stuff so I can sign books, but also there's an opportunity for you to meet. Do you want to do any meeting for GM Free DC?
We have an event this Saturday in front of Whole Foods on P Street for a GMO Free USA and GMO Free DC are doing a honk and wave to raise awareness for, well, there's the Kashi cereal and Whole Foods, but basically it's just to raise an awareness with Alexis Baden-Mayer in the back there, I see, from Organic Consumer Association. She and I will be doing the honk and wave, so please come and speak to us if you'd like to join up for that.
So the IRT, Institute for Responsible Technology, has a, come on Alexis, has a very big presence in educating people about the health dangers. And you've probably heard of another group that has a very big presence in this arena. Alexis, why don't you both tell us about that?
Hi, I'm Alexis Baden. I'm the political director of the Organic Consumers Association. Hopefully some of you are here because you heard about this event. I try to make an effort when I hear about things that are happening locally to send to our Virginia, Maryland, and DC lists. And if you are organizing events that Organic Consumers Association members should hear about locally, please let me know. My email address is really easy. It's alexis@organicconsumers.org. Who's this? This is my son, Sherwood. Alexis, ALEXIS, @organicconsumers.org.
So there's also a lot of labeling activity, organizations trying to get labeling. Are there any states nearby that we need to know about for labeling initiatives? You do GMO-free Virginia. Do you want to meet with anyone or announce anything with that? Okay, so for GMO-free Virginia, why don't you meet in that corner at the end? Maryland's going to meet over there. You want to hook up with DC over here. OCA's over there. I'll be in the back. And I will also say this. I have mastered the art of signing books and answering questions at the same time. So we'll be able to answer your questions at the table. So I want to say this to go to final. I have found in my experience visiting Washington a few times in the last couple of years that there are amazing movers and shakers here. Who knew? So it turns out that by educating your friends who will educate their friends who will educate their friends in Washington, the leverage is unprecedented because you may end up having educated someone who has enormous ability to implement healthier food and healthier policy for all of us. So you are in a rare opportunity on Earth for human beings. Please take advantage. Thank you all very much.